Life never crowns a man without first testing the standards he claims. Temporary defeat comes to all. In that hour, your standard is revealed. If it is low, you quit. If it is high, you persist. If it is shallow, you excuse yourself. If it is deep, you rise again stronger. Defeat is the fire in which standards are tested, and only the man of iron refuses to melt.
Welcome to Napoleon Hill's Daily Millionaire Mindset, where we teach you the timeless principles that turn ambition into achievement. Subscribe today and start creating the life you deserve.
Your life right now is a reflection of your standards. Nothing more, nothing less. You may argue, you may blame fate, you may complain of circumstance, but look honestly and you will see the truth. You are living exactly what your standards allow. If your standards permit poverty, you will remain poor. If your standards tolerate fear, you will drift in fear. If your standards excuse mediocrity, your life will mirror mediocrity. Life will not rise to meet your wishes. It will sink or rise to meet your standards. Think of it. A man says, "At least I have a job. At least I can get by." That is his standard, survival. And survival is all he will ever know. Another man says, "I demand abundance. I demand influence. I demand freedom." That becomes his standard. He cannot accept less. So he labors, he persists, he commands until life delivers. Your entire destiny hinges on what you will no longer tolerate, what excuses you refuse to permit, what compromises you will not make. Raise the standard, and you raise your life. Keep it low, and no law in heaven or earth will lift you higher. Picture this. One man comes home at night, weary, but he sinks into a chair and says, "At least I made it through the day." His children watch him silently. They learn his standard, that life is something to endure. Years later, they will repeat his pattern. Another man comes home equally weary, but he refuses to stop until he has written his decree, reviewed his plan, spoken his affirmations. His children watch him too. They learn his standard, that life is something to conquer. Years later, they will repeat his pattern. Which man are you? Do not deceive yourself. Standards are contagious. Your family, your friends, your colleagues, they catch them from you. If you live small, they will believe small. If you live high, they will rise higher. When you raise your standards, you raise not only your life, but the lives of everyone who looks to you. Every story of greatness is the story of a man who raised the standard. Lincoln refused to accept division as permanent. Carnegie refused to accept poverty as his destiny. Ford refused to accept impossible as a verdict. Edison refused to accept 10,000 failures as final. Each raised the standard, and the world was forced to rise with them. Now I must warn you, the standard you set is not in words. It is in what you practice daily. You may say, "I demand more." But if your habits are weak, if your persistence is short, if your faith is faint, then your true standard is still low. Life listens not to your lips, but to your discipline. So I challenge you now, what will you no longer accept? What poverty, what fear, what excuse, what drift? Draw the line today. Say to yourself, "I will no longer drift. I will no longer excuse. I will no longer beg. My standard is definiteness. My standard is faith. My standard is persistence. My standard is mastery." Say it until you feel it burn. Say it until your habits align. Say it until the world itself recognizes that you will not bow to mediocrity. Then watch as doors open, allies appear, and fortune hastens to serve you. Your life will not change because you wish it. It will not change because you wait. It will change only when you raise the standard and refuse to live below it another day. Part 1. The Hidden Law of Standards. Life does not rise to meet your wishes. It rises or sinks to meet your standards. Wishes are idle. Standards are law. You may dream of riches, but if your standard tolerates poverty, you will remain poor. You may hope for influence, but if your standard accepts fear, you will drift in fear. Standards are silent decrees, written not in words but in conduct, that govern your destiny more powerfully than fate. I have studied thousands of men and women and discovered that success is never an accident. It is the direct result of the standards one sets for himself. One man says, "I will accept enough to survive." His life reflects survival. Another man says, "I will not rest until I command abundance." His life reflects abundance. Fate did not choose between them. Their standards chose.
Pause for a moment. Take a deep breath. Sit up straight. Pay close attention. If you can, grab a journal or open a notes app and capture the ideas that strike you. And if you want to get the most out of these teachings, don't forget to check the first link in the description.
Consider two men returning from labor. One collapses into a chair and sighs, "At least I made it through." His children watch and learn that endurance is all life offers. Another, equally weary, takes up his pen and writes his decree before retiring. He refuses to permit drift in his household. His children watch and learn that life is to be conquered. Both men teach standards, one of weakness, the other of mastery. Abraham Lincoln rose from poverty not by wishing, but by raising his standard. He refused to accept division as the permanent destiny of his country. Many men wished for unity, but they tolerated compromise. Lincoln's standard was higher. He said with his life, "This nation shall not perish." He endured failures, defeats, ridicule, yet his standard did not bend. That standard lifted a nation. Andrew Carnegie began as a poor boy, working in a factory for meager wages. Many around him said, "This is our lot." Their standard was survival. Carnegie said, "I will not remain here. I demand wealth. I demand influence." He raised his standard above his surroundings. He endured labor, studied men, served beyond pay, and persisted until fortune surrendered. His standard, not fate, chose his destiny. Say aloud, "My standard is mastery. I refuse mediocrity. I will not accept drift. I will not excuse fear. I will not tolerate poverty. I raise my standard, and my life must rise with it. My standard is definiteness. My standard is persistence. My standard is faith. Because I have raised my standard, I cannot live below it. Because I refuse mediocrity, I must command mastery. Standards are invisible yet irresistible. They are not what you claim, but what you prove. You may say, "I demand greatness," but if your habits are weak, your standard is weakness. You may claim, "I will be rich," but if you tolerate excuses, your standard is poverty. Life listens not to your lips, but to your daily discipline. Standards are laws written in action, enforced by results. The drifter sets no high standard. He says, "I will take what comes." He excuses his weakness by blaming chance. He waits for opportunity, yet wastes every day in mediocrity. His standard is low, and so his life remains low. The master sets high standards. He says, "I will create what I demand." He tolerates no excuses, accepts no drift. His standard is high, and so his life must rise. Your standard is the line you will not cross downward. If you say, "I will never allow myself to go hungry," you will find a way to eat. If you say, "I will never allow myself to drift," you will act with definiteness. If you say, "I will never accept mediocrity," you will persist until mastery is achieved. Your standard is the floor of your life, and you may raise it at will. Consider the immigrant who arrives with nothing but raises his standard to abundance. He demands more of himself than survival. He works, saves, learns, persists until his household reflects his new standard. Another immigrant arrives, works equally hard, but says, "At least I get by." His standard is survival, and survival is all he ever secures. Same chance, different standard, different destiny. Say again, "My standard is mastery. I refuse mediocrity. I will not drift in excuses. I will not beg of chance. I will raise my line daily until mediocrity cannot live in me. My family will inherit my standard. My companions will reflect my standard. My world will bend to my standard. I raise it higher, and life must rise with it. I refuse mediocrity. Therefore, I command mastery. Standards are contagious. Children catch them from parents. Employees catch them from leaders. Nations catch them from men of influence. Lincoln raised his, and a nation followed. Carnegie raised his, and an industry followed. Ford raised his, and transportation followed. Edison raised his, and the world followed into light. Standards do not remain private. They radiate outward, lifting or lowering all who touch them. Your excuses are nothing more than confessions of your standard. When you say, I am too tired, you confess that your standard is weakness. When you say, I will try, you confess that your standard is hesitation. When you say, at least I survive, you confess that your standard is survival. Raise your speech. Say, I demand more. I will persist until. I will not excuse. I will not drift. The law is plain. Your life will not exceed your standard. A man with a low standard may stumble into fortune, but he will lose it. A man with a high standard may begin in poverty, but he will rise. The law does not fail. Standards govern destiny more powerfully than fate, for fate bends to the man who raises his standard. Standards are destiny. Raise them, and you raise your life. So I charge you now, write one thing you will no longer tolerate. Say aloud, I will no longer accept mediocrity. I will no longer drift. I will no longer beg. My standard is mastery. My standard is definiteness. My standard is persistence. Repeat it until your blood believes it. Live it until your habits reflect it. Enforce it until the world itself recognizes that you have raised the standard. Part 2, the power of refusal. A man is measured not only by what he demands, but by what he refuses. Standards are not raised by wishes, but by firm refusals. Your destiny begins the moment you say, I will no longer tolerate drift. I will no longer excuse weakness. I will no longer bow to mediocrity. Each refusal is a line drawn in your mind, a decree that no circumstance or critic can bend. Edison proved the power of refusal. 10,000 times his experiments failed to produce light. Others would have quit, excusing themselves by saying, it is impossible. Edison refused. He said, I will not accept defeat. His refusal hardened into persistence, and persistence delivered light to the world. Fortune obeys the man who says no to surrender and yes to definiteness. Say aloud, I refuse to live below my decree. I refuse drift. I refuse fear. I refuse excuses. I refuse weakness. I refuse to bow to critics. My refusals are my standards, and they protect me from mediocrity. Because I refuse to accept smallness, I must grow. Because I refuse to drift, I must advance. Because I refuse fear, I must walk in faith. My refusal is law. Henry Ford also proved refusal. When his engineers told him the 8-cylinder engine was impossible, he refused their verdict. He said, produce it. They failed for months, returned with nothing. But Ford repeated, produce it. His refusal to accept impossibility forced invention to appear. Today, his name is written in history because he refused to surrender to no. The drifter never refuses. He accepts every weakness, every excuse, every criticism. He says perhaps they are right and drifts with the crowd. His standard is low because he has never learned to refuse. The master is decisive. He says, this I will not allow. This I will not excuse. This I will not accept. His refusals carve away weakness until only mastery remains. Refusal is strength. It is the power to resist compromise. Without it, desire flickers, faith wavers, persistence dies. With it, desire sharpens, faith strengthens, persistence endures. Each time you refuse drift, you confirm your standard. Each time you refuse fear, you deepen your faith. Each time you refuse excuses, you prove your identity as master. Refusal is the hammer that shapes destiny. Consider Abraham Lincoln. He endured loss after loss, yet he refused to surrender. Critics mocked him, defeats humiliated him, sorrow weighed him down, but he said, I will not accept division as our destiny. His refusal became the lifeline of a nation. Without it, America would have perished. His standard was tested, and refusal proved it. Such is the power of no. Say again, I refuse to live below my decree. I refuse mediocrity. I refuse excuses. I refuse drift. I refuse to bow to fear. My refusal sets my standard. My refusal raises my destiny. Each no I speak to weakness is a yes to mastery. I refuse smallness and I choose greatness. I refuse to drift and I choose definiteness. I refuse fear and I choose faith. Your excuses reveal what you have not yet refused. If you say, I am too tired, it means you tolerate weakness. If you say, I will try later, it means you accept drift. If you say, I will wait for luck, it means you accept mediocrity. Every excuse is a confession of your true standard. Raise your refusals, and excuses will vanish. Lower them, and excuses will multiply. Rockefeller refused to remain a small trader. He said no to waste, no to carelessness, no to indiscipline. He demanded order, system, precision. His refusals built his empire. Discipline is always born of refusal. The man who refuses drift in small matters proves worthy to command fortune in great matters. The law does not fail. Refusal is the foundation of mastery. The drifter says it is easier to go along. The master says, I refuse to bend. The drifter says, at least I am safe. The master says, I refuse safety if it means mediocrity. The drifter says, at least I am not criticized. The master says, I refuse silence if truth demands speech. The drifter drifts downward by acceptance. The master rises upward by refusal. Say aloud once more with conviction, I refuse to live below my decree. I refuse drift, excuses, and fear. I refuse mediocrity, and I demand mastery. I refuse compromise with weakness. I refuse surrender to defeat. I refuse to bow to critics. My refusals are my laws, and they shape my destiny. Because I refuse to drift, I will persist. Because I refuse mediocrity, I will rise. Your destiny does not depend on luck. It depends on what you are willing to say no to. Say no to fear, and you choose faith. Say no to excuses, and you choose persistence. Say no to drift, and you choose definiteness. Each refusal closes the door on mediocrity and opens the door to mastery. Refusal is power. Practice it daily, and life will rise to meet your higher standard. So I charge you, examine your life tonight. Write down what you will no longer tolerate. Say aloud, I refuse to live below my decree. Repeat it until your subconscious accepts it. Enforce it daily. Each refusal is a victory. Each refusal raises your standard. Each refusal bends fortune toward you. Refuse weakness, refuse drift, refuse mediocrity, then watch your life rise. Part 3. Desire as the new standard. Every great fortune begins with desire, but not all desire is equal. The weak man wishes for comfort, and life grants him only survival. The strong man burns with definite desire, backed by standards that refuse compromise, and life bends to deliver abundance. Desire without high standards is a passing fancy. Desire with uncompromising standards is destiny in motion. Edwin C. Barnes proved this law. He did not merely wish to work for Thomas Edison. Thousands wished for that. Barnes demanded to be Edison's partner. His standard forbade him from accepting less. He arrived with no money, dressed as a tramp, but his desire was definite. He repeated to himself, I will become Edison's business associate. That standard inflamed his desire until it consumed every weakness. Barnes began at the bottom, doing menial work for meager pay. Yet he persisted with the certainty of his standard. He did not say, at least I have a job. He said, this is only a step to partnership. His desire, backed by uncompromising standards, drew opportunity. When Edison released a new invention that others scorned, Barnes seized it, sold it with zeal, and earned his place as Edison's partner. Say aloud, my desire is definite. My standard will not bend. I do not wish vaguely. I demand with fire. I will not excuse weakness. I will not tolerate drift. I will not compromise my decree. My desire is my law. My standard is my strength. I persist until. I command until. I conquer until. My desire is definite. My standard is unshakable. My fortune must obey. The drifter wishes for riches, but accepts excuses. He says, I want more. Yet his standard tolerates mediocrity. His desire burns only in words. His actions prove drift. He surrenders at the first defeat because his standard permits it. The master inflames desire with high standards. He says, I will not accept less. I will persist until I achieve his actions prove fire. His standard forbids surrender. Andrew Carnegie began with nothing but desire. Many boys in poverty wished for riches, but their standards tolerated small wages, careless habits, idle evenings. Carnegie raised his standard. He refused poverty as permanent. He studied men, rendered more service than he was paid for, and demanded a future greater than his station. His desire, backed by raised standards, carried him to fortune. Abraham Lincoln's desire for unity was not a wish but a standard. He refused to accept division as permanent. Others wished for peace but compromised with slavery. Lincoln said, "This cannot stand." His standard inflamed his desire until it drove him through failure after failure. His desire, backed by refusal to compromise, lifted a nation. Desire without standards drifts. Desire with standards conquers. Say again, my desire is definite, my standard will not bend. I do not compromise, I do not excuse, I do not delay. I persist until victory. I demand fortune, and fortune must obey. I demand mastery, and mastery must appear. I demand abundance, and abundance is mine. My desire is fire, my standard is steel, my persistence is endless. Therefore my decree must come to pass. Desire reshapes habits when standards are high. The man of weak standards says, I want more, but sleeps late, wastes time, excuses delay. His desire is smoke. The man of high standards says, I demand mastery, and rises early, reviews his plan, reads his decree, renders service. His desire becomes fire that consumes weakness. Standards make desire practical, and desire drives destiny. Henry Ford desired a car for the common man. Many wished for automobiles, but only for the wealthy. Ford's standard forbade compromise. He said, I will not rest until every man can afford a car. That standard inflamed his desire. He endured failure, ridicule, resistance, but he persisted until the Model T rolled off the line. His desire, backed by standards, transformed an industry. The drifter says, I hope someday. The master says, I demand today. The drifter says, I will try until it is difficult. The master says, I persist until it is done. The drifter's desire fades because his standard permits surrender. The master's desire endures because his standard forbids it. Desire is the seed, but standards are the soil. Without rich soil, no seed can grow. Say once more with passion, my desire is definite, my standard will not bend. I refuse to wish vaguely, I demand with definiteness. I persist until, I refuse compromise, I refuse excuses, I refuse drift. My desire is fire, my standard is steel, my destiny is certain. I am master because my desire is backed by standards that cannot be broken. My fortune must appear because I will not yield. So I charge you, raise your standards of desire. Do not say, I wish. Say, I will. Do not accept. At least I survive. Say, I demand abundance. Do not tolerate excuses. Write your decree, inflame it with desire, and guard it with high standards. Desire alone flickers. Desire with standards burns until it consumes defeat. Raise your desire, raise your standard, and raise your destiny. Part 4. Faith. The standard of certainty. Desire ignites the fire, but faith carries it across the bridge into reality. Without faith, desire burns itself out in doubt. Without faith, plans collapse under criticism. Without faith, persistence fades in the face of delay. Faith is not a luxury. It is the standard that says, I will act as though my riches already exist. This standard lifts desire from fantasy into destiny. Charles M. Schwab knew this law. When he stood before J.P. Morgan to propose the greatest steel trust the world had seen, he did not tremble or hedge. He spoke as though the billion-dollar corporation already existed. His faith infected Morgan, and Morgan acted. Within days, United States Steel was born. Schwab's standard of faith was certainty, and certainty bent the will of financiers. Say aloud, what I believe, I achieve. My standard is certainty. I act as though I already possess the fortune I demand. I speak with confidence. I move with boldness. I persist with faith. I do not wait for proof, for my belief is proof. My faith is fire, my standard is law, my destiny is certain. What I believe I achieve, because faith never fails the man who persists. The drifter lives by faint faith. He says, I hope it will work. I think it may happen. His standard tolerates doubt, so doubt poisons every effort. At the first criticism, he wavers. At the first defeat, he quits. His faith is smoke, and smoke vanishes. The master lives by burning certainty. He says, I know it is mine. I know it is coming. I know I cannot fail. That standard fuels every act. Abraham Lincoln endured repeated defeats, yet faith was his standard. He said, this nation shall endure. Critics mocked him. Circumstances denied him. Yet his faith did not bend. His standard forbade surrender. His certainty carried him to the presidency, and his faith carried a nation through war. Without faith, his desire would have withered. With faith, his desire conquered destiny. Andrew Carnegie's faith was so strong it infected all who worked for him. He believed in the future of steel when others doubted. His confidence drew investors, inspired workers, and silenced critics. His faith was his aura, and men felt it before he spoke. His standard was certainty, and certainty bent an industry. That same law waits for you to enforce it. Say again, what I believe, I achieve. My standard is certainty. I will not drift in doubt. I will not bow to fear. I will not excuse weakness. My decree is law. My belief is unshakable. My persistence is endless. Because I believe, fortune must obey. Because I believe, opportunity must appear. Because I believe, my destiny must be fulfilled. My standard is faith. My crown is certainty. Faith is built through repetition. Each time you read your decree aloud with fire, you engrave certainty. Each time you act as though already rich, you strengthen belief. Each time you persist in the face of defeat, you deepen faith. Faith is not born in a day. It is hammered into your subconscious by daily discipline. Soon it ceases to be effort and becomes identity. Edison did not merely hope for light. He believed in it. His faith was his standard. 10,000 failures did not weaken him because his certainty burned hotter than defeat. He said, I know it exists, and I will persist until it appears. His standard was faith. His persistence was endless, and his destiny was victory. Without faith, he would have quit. With faith, he gave light to the world. The drifter asks for permission to believe. He waits until others approve, until results appear. He says, I will believe when I see. He dies waiting. The master says, I will believe now before proof. I will see because I believe his certainty moves men, inspires allies, and commands results. His faith precedes evidence, and evidence must follow. This is the law of standards in faith. Say aloud once more with passion, what I believe, I achieve. My standard is certainty. I act as though already rich. I speak with definiteness. I move with boldness. I persist until fortune bows. I refuse doubt. I banish fear. I silence critics. My belief is unshakable. My decree is law. My destiny is certain. I cannot fail because I believe, and what I believe I must achieve. So I charge you, raise your standard of faith. Do not say, I hope. Say, I know. Do not say, perhaps. Say, it is mine. Do not waver at criticism. Do not yield at defeat. Speak your decree with certainty. Act upon it daily. Persist without retreat. Soon others will feel your faith and join you. Soon fortune will bend to you. Faith is certainty, and certainty is mastery. Part 5. The Standard of Discipline in Daily Habits. John D. Rockefeller rose not by loud declarations, but by iron discipline. He recorded every penny, studied every figure, planned every move. His standard was order, and his habits obeyed it daily. He did not excuse waste. He did not tolerate disorder. He lived his standard in small matters until great fortune became inevitable. Standards are visible in discipline long before they are visible in riches. Say aloud, my standard is discipline. My habits obey me. I rise when I command. I work as I command. I rest as I command. I review my plan daily. I render service beyond pay. I refuse drift in my hours. I refuse waste in my habits. My standard is law, and my habits prove it. Because I am disciplined, I cannot fail. Because my habits obey me, fortune must obey me. The drifter is ruled by impulses. He says, I will do it tomorrow. And tomorrow becomes years. He says, I deserve a rest. And rest becomes weakness. His standard tolerates excuses, and excuses multiply until discipline is lost. The master rules his impulses. He says, I will do it now, and he acts. He says, I must persist, and he persists. His standard forbids drift, and his habits obey. Rockefeller's discipline was visible not only in business, but in conduct. He walked with order, spoke with precision, ate with restraint, thought with control. His discipline radiated from him. Men trusted him because his habits revealed strength. Fortune trusted him because his habits revealed definiteness. The world does not trust the undisciplined. It crowns the disciplined with responsibility and reward. Your standard of discipline is tested in small moments. Do you write your decree daily? Do you review your plan nightly? Do you render more service than you are paid for? These are not dramatic acts. They are the quiet laws that prove your standard. The drifter says, what difference does one night make? The master says, each night is proof of my destiny. Say again, my standard is discipline, my habits obey me. I review my plan daily. I repeat my decree with fire. I persist until. I render service beyond pay. I refuse excuses. I refuse drift. My hours are seeds. My days are proof. My habits are law. Because I am disciplined, fortune cannot deny me. Because I command my habits, I command destiny. My standard is discipline. Consider two men. One demands abundance, but drifts into gossip, idleness, and wasted hours. His standard is not abundance, it is mediocrity. Another says little, but lives by iron habits. He rises early, reviews his aims, acts daily, refuses excuses. His standard is mastery, and his discipline proves it. In time, their destinies reveal the truth. Life bows to discipline, not to words. The drifter hopes habits will form themselves. He says, I will change when fortune comes. Fortune never comes. The master forges habits deliberately. He says, I will discipline myself first, and fortune will follow. He trains his body, his mind, his hours, until discipline becomes nature. He does not wait for riches to act like a master. He acts like a master until riches appear. Edison worked through nights, persisting with order and focus. Ford labored in his workshop, adjusting and refining, while others wasted hours in amusement. Lincoln studied law by candlelight while others slept. Carnegie read and planned while others idled. Each raised his standard through daily discipline. Each proved mastery long before fortune appeared. Say aloud once more, My standard is discipline. My habits obey me. I live by decree, not by drift. I live by order, not by impulse. I command my hours. I command my thoughts. I command my actions. My discipline proves my standard. My habits prove my destiny. Because I am disciplined, I cannot fail. Because my habits obey me, fortune must obey me. Discipline is my crown. So I charge you, examine your habits tonight. Do they reflect drift or mastery? Do they prove your decree or betray it? Write down one habit you will no longer tolerate. Replace it with one act of discipline. Repeat it daily until it is law. Raise your standard of discipline, and your life must rise. The drifter excuses, the master enforces. Choose, and your destiny will follow your standard. Part 6, the company you keep, standards made visible. Your standards are never private. They radiate outward and shape the lives of those around you. A man may claim high aims, but if he surrounds himself with drifters, his true standard is revealed. Your circle is the mirror of your standard. Weak standards attract weak companions. High standards attract strong allies. Look at your circle, and you will see your destiny. Andrew Carnegie confessed that the true secret of his fortune was not steel, but men. He gathered around him a master mind of capable, ambitious, disciplined individuals who matched his standard. He tolerated no idlers, no doubters, no complainers. His companions reflected his vision. Their unity multiplied his power. His company was the visible proof of his high standard. Say aloud, I ally only with high standards. Harmony lifts me higher. I refuse the company of drifters. I refuse the poison of critics. I refuse the weakness of excuses. I attract men of definiteness. I attract allies of faith and persistence. Together we multiply our power. Because I keep high company, I cannot sink. Because I demand harmony, my standard rises daily. The drifter surrounds himself with idle companions. He listens to gossip, repeats complaints, and absorbs doubt. He says, they are my friends, but their weakness infects him. His subconscious is poisoned by their low standard. He wonders why he cannot rise while anchored to mediocrity. The master chooses carefully. He says, I will not tolerate weak company. His companions strengthen, not weaken his decree. Carnegie's men called him demanding, but they respected him because he demanded from himself first. His standard lifted theirs. They knew his vision was high, so they raised their own to match it. This is the contagious law of standards. Your family, your colleagues, your children, they catch your standard silently. They believe what you practice, not what you preach. Picture two fathers. One comes home weary and says, at least I survived. His children inherit his standard of endurance. Another, equally weary, reviews his plan, speaks his decree, persists in discipline. His children inherit his standard of conquest, standards spread through generations. What you tolerate, your children will accept. What you demand, your children will practice. Say again, I ally only with high standards. Harmony lifts me higher. My family inherits my strength. My colleagues rise to my demand. My companions reflect my decree. I refuse mediocrity. I refuse drift. I refuse excuses. I attract persistence, faith, and courage. I multiply power by unity. My company is proof of my standard, and my standard is law. John D. Rockefeller built his empire with men of order and precision. He dismissed those who wasted, who quarreled, who lacked discipline. His circle reflected his own standard of accuracy and control. Because his companions were strong, his system was unbreakable. Fortune crowns the man whose circle reflects his high standard. It punishes the man whose company proves his weakness. The drifter says, at least I am loyal to my old friends. But loyalty to weakness is treason to destiny. Better to walk alone in definiteness than with a crowd in drift. The master says, I demand harmony. I demand persistence. I demand faith. He attracts allies who share his standard, and together they command fortune. Weak loyalty destroys. Strong harmony multiplies. Say once more, I ally only with high standards. Harmony lifts me higher. I dismiss doubters. I silence critics. I attract masters. I raise my family with discipline. I lift my colleagues with vision. I multiply power by alliance. I refuse weak company. My companions reflect my decree. My circle is strong. My harmony is definite. My destiny is mastery. My standard is visible, and my fortune is certain. So I charge you, examine your company tonight. Who strengthens you? Who weakens you? Who believes in your decree? Who poisons it? Cast out the weak. Keep the strong. Build a circle that lifts, not drags. Raise your standard of company, and your life will rise. Standards are contagious. Let yours be mastery, and you will raise not only yourself, but all who walk with you. Part 7. Standards tested in defeat. R.U. Darby and his uncle dug for gold. They struck a vein, invested in machinery, dreamed of fortune. Then the vein vanished. Discouraged, they quit. They sold their equipment to a junk dealer. That dealer sought an engineer who drilled 3 feet deeper and struck the fortune. Darby's standard had been survival, not persistence, but he learned. Later, in insurance, he vowed never to quit again. Darby's lesson became his strength. He told himself, I stopped 3 feet from gold once, but I will not stop again. He raised his standard. He persisted in sales when others quit. He endured rejection and ridicule until he sold millions of dollars in policies. Temporary defeat revealed his weakness, but raising his standard turned it into strength. Fortune always crowns those who refuse surrender. Say aloud, my standard forbids surrender. I persist until. I do not quit at defeat. I do not excuse weakness. I do not drift when tested. My standard is persistence. My standard is faith. My standard is definiteness. Each defeat is a teacher, not a master. Each failure is a step, not an end. I persist until my decree is fulfilled. Because my standard forbids surrender, I cannot fail. Abraham Lincoln endured more defeats than victories on his path to the presidency. He failed in business, lost elections, was criticized as weak. Yet each defeat tested his standard, and each time he rose again. He refused to accept that failure defined him. His standard was endurance, and endurance carried him until destiny crowned him. Defeat revealed his character, and character revealed his standard. The drifter excuses himself in defeat. He says, it was not meant to be. He lowers his standard, accepts weakness, and calls it fate. His destiny sinks with each excuse. The master raises his standard higher at each defeat. He says, I will persist until. I will not lower my decree. I will grow stronger. His destiny rises with each trial. Standards decide the outcome of defeat. Henry Ford's engineers told him the V8 was impossible. They failed again and again. A weaker man would have said, enough. I will settle for less, Ford refused. His standard forbade surrender. He said, produce it. At last they succeeded, and Ford's empire grew greater. If his standard had permitted compromise, history would have forgotten him. Because his standard forbade surrender, fortune immortalized him. Say again, my standard forbids surrender. I persist until. I will not quit. I will not drift. I will not excuse. Each defeat is fuel, not failure. Each rejection is proof of my persistence. Each obstacle is proof of my decree. Because I refuse to surrender, I must advance. Because my standard is persistence, fortune must yield. I persist until I conquer, and I conquer because I persist. Temporary defeat is not failure. It is the world asking, do you truly mean what you say? The drifter admits, I only wished. The master answers, I will persist until. The test is necessary. Without it, men would quit easily, and riches would be wasted. Life crowns only those who prove their standard through defeat. Persistence is the mark of the man who cannot be denied. Lincoln persisted. Darby learned to persist. Ford persisted. Edison persisted. Each was tested. Each raised his standard higher than the trial. Each endured until fortune obeyed. Defeat is inevitable. Surrender is optional. Standards make the difference. The man of low standards quits. The man of high standards endures. The law does not fail. Standards tested in defeat reveal destiny. Say once more with fire, my standard forbids surrender. I persist until I cannot quit, because quitting is below my decree. I cannot drift, because drift is weakness. I cannot excuse, because excuses are surrender. My decree is law, and my standard forbids me to betray it. I persist until fortune bends. I persist until victory is mine. I persist until my destiny is fulfilled. I cannot fail. So I charge you, expect defeat. Welcome it as proof. Let it test you, but never let it break you. Say to yourself in the hour of loss, my standard forbids surrender. Raise your line higher. Persist longer. Endure until. Defeat will pass, but your standard will remain. If it is high, fortune will one day crown you. If it is low, you will drift. Choose persistence, and destiny is yours. Part 8, the aura of higher standards. Standards are not hidden. They radiate outward, becoming an unseen aura that others feel before you speak. A man of weak standards enters a room and goes unnoticed. His presence is vague, his posture uncertain, his tone apologetic. A man of high standards enters, and without words, others sense authority. His presence commands attention. His aura is his standard made visible. Henry Ford carried such an aura. His engineers doubted, but his definiteness infected them. He walked into the workshop with certainty that the V8 would exist, and his aura silenced hesitation. Men felt his standard. Though they resisted at first, they eventually bent to his definiteness. Ford's aura did more than his words. It communicated his standard of mastery before he explained a plan. Charles Schwab had an aura that filled a room. When he spoke before J.P. Morgan about the Steel Trust, it was not only his words, but his presence that convinced. Morgan felt his confidence, his decisiveness, his faith. The aura of Schwab's standard persuaded as strongly as his figures. The world listens not only to your lips, but to the atmosphere of your belief. Say aloud, I radiate mastery. My standard is felt before I speak. I walk with definiteness. I stand with faith. I persist with fire. My aura is command. My presence is confidence. My tone is authority. Because my standard is high, my aura is strong. Because my aura is strong, fortune is drawn to me. I radiate mastery, and the world bends before my standard. The drifter radiates weakness. His eyes shift, his shoulders slump, his voice trembles. He may say, I demand greatness, but his aura betrays his true standard. Others feel his insecurity, doubt his words, and dismiss his presence. The master radiates definiteness. His eyes are steady, his carriage upright, his voice firm. He may speak little, but his aura proclaims his mastery. Aura is born from repetition of standards. Each time you enforce discipline, faith, persistence, you strengthen the unseen field around you. Each time you excuse weakness, your aura dims. This is why you must live your standards daily. Others cannot see your affirmations, but they feel their result. You cannot fake aura. It is the sum of your daily discipline revealed in silence. Think of Abraham Lincoln. Many called him awkward, plain, even ugly. Yet his aura was one of strength and honesty. Men felt his sincerity before he spoke. Soldiers followed him because his presence inspired faith. His aura came not from appearance, but from the standard he lived: persistence, integrity, unity. Standards radiate into aura, and aura bends men more than beauty or charm. Say again, I radiate mastery. My standard is felt before I speak. I refuse to carry weakness. I refuse to radiate fear. I refuse to emit drift. My aura is definiteness. My aura is persistence. My aura is faith. Because my aura is strong, I attract allies. Because my aura is strong, I command respect. Because my aura is strong, fortune hastens to me. I radiate mastery. Your aura attracts or repels opportunity. Weak standards push it away. High standards draw it near. A man of certainty attracts investors. A man of hesitation loses them. A man of persistence attracts allies. A man of drift loses them. The world is not blind. It feels aura. If you would command fortune, raise your standard until it radiates unmistakably in your presence. Rockefeller's aura was precision and control. Men trusted his steadiness. Edison's aura was faith and invention. Others believed because he believed. Carnegie's aura was ambition. It infected all who worked for him. These men did not announce their aura. It was felt by all. Their high standards lived daily, radiated into invisible influence that opened doors and multiplied fortune. The drifter says, I will act confident when I succeed. He waits forever. His aura remains weak because his standard is low. The master says, I will radiate confidence now before I succeed. His aura attracts opportunity, which leads to success. Aura precedes fortune. The man who raises his standard raises his aura, and the man who raises his aura commands destiny. Say once more with passion, I radiate mastery. My standard is felt before I speak. I walk with decisiveness. I persist with fire. I act with discipline. I speak with faith. My aura is proof of my decree. My aura attracts allies. My aura commands respect. My aura draws fortune. I do not drift. I do not fear. I do not hesitate. My aura is mastery, and my standard is law. So I charge you, embody your standards in posture, tone, and action. Stand upright, speak firmly, act persistently. Let your aura proclaim definiteness before your words do. Train your aura with daily discipline. Raise your standard until it radiates irresistibly. Soon others will feel your mastery, and doors will open before you. Radiate mastery, and the world will rise to meet your standard. Part 9. The Crown of Mastery. Identity forged by standards. When a man raises his standards and enforces them daily, he no longer practices discipline. He becomes discipline. He no longer speaks of faith. He becomes faith. He no longer demands persistence. He embodies persistence. His standards fuse into his identity. This is the crown of mastery, when what you demanded yesterday becomes who you are today. Standards forge identity. Andrew Carnegie was not remembered for wishing riches. He was remembered for living the standard of abundance. Henry Ford was not honored for dreaming of cars. He was honored for living the standard of service to the common man. Edison was not praised for hoping for light. He was praised for living the standard of persistence. Each man's standards became his identity, and the world remembered them by it. Say aloud, I raise my standard daily. I live as master, not drifter. I embody persistence. I embody definiteness. I embody faith. My habits are proof. My aura is proof. My companions are proof. My victories are proof. My identity is mastery. I am not a beggar. I am not a drifter. I am master. Because I have raised my standards, I have crowned myself with mastery. The drifter's identity is weakness. He says, I will try, and his life reflects hesitation. He says, I will wait, and his life reflects delay. He says, I will excuse myself, and his life reflects excuses. His standard is mediocrity, and his identity is drift. He dies unknown, forgotten, because his identity was compromise. Fate did not bury him. His low standards did. The master's identity is strength. He says, I will persist until, and his life reflects victory. He says, I will act as though, and his life reflects faith. He says, I will refuse weakness, and his life reflects discipline. His standard is mastery, and his identity is command. He dies remembered, honored, crowned, because his standards became who he was. Edison's name endures not because he invented light, but because he lived persistence until persistence became his identity. Lincoln's name endures not because he wished unity, but because he lived endurance until endurance became his identity. Rockefeller's name endures not because he wished order, but because he lived discipline until discipline became his identity. Standards crown men with identity, and identity crowns them with mastery. Say again with fire, I raise my standard daily. I live as master, not drifter. I refuse excuses. I refuse drift. I refuse mediocrity. I embody definiteness. I embody persistence. I embody faith. My identity is mastery. My crown is discipline. My aura is command. My destiny is certain. Because I have forged my identity by standards, I cannot fall. Because I live as master, fortune must serve me. Your crown is not given. It is forged. Each refusal to drift is a jewel. Each act of persistence is a gem. Each day of discipline is a stone. Each word of faith is gold. Together they form the crown of mastery. You may not see it at first, but others will. They will feel it in your presence, hear it in your voice, and see it in your life. Standards, enforced daily, create a crown none can take away. The drifter waits for recognition before raising his standards. He says, when I succeed, I will act like a master. He never succeeds. The master raises his standards before fortune arrives. He acts like a master first, and fortune follows. Recognition comes after, not before. Identity comes from discipline, not applause. Your crown is forged in silence and revealed in victory. Abraham Lincoln forged his crown in obscurity. He endured defeats, endured ridicule, endured failure, yet he raised his standards daily. Persistence became his identity. Faith became his aura. Unity became his decree. When destiny demanded leadership, he wore the crown he had forged silently for years. This is mastery. When your identity has been forged so deeply that destiny cannot deny you. Say aloud once more, I raise my standard daily. I live as master, not drifter. I forge my crown in silence. I prove my decree in discipline. I prove my decree in persistence. I prove my decree in faith. I embody mastery until it becomes my identity. I refuse excuses. I refuse mediocrity. I refuse drift. My crown is certain. My destiny is mastery. My identity is command. So I charge you, write the one line you will never again tolerate. Say aloud, I will never drift again. I will never excuse weakness again. I will never bow to fear again. I will live as master daily. Repeat it until your habits prove it. Enforce it until your aura radiates it. Live it until your family inherits it. Soon, it will no longer be what you do. It will be who you are. Standards will have forged your identity, and destiny will have crowned you with mastery.
If this inspired you, subscribe and follow for more, and don't miss the other videos we've lined up for you. Keep learning, keep growing. Your next breakthrough could be one click away.